Merry Dawnsmas, everybody. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't planning on making today's video because I don't really care about the seasonal events, let alone the weapons, more than half the time. But I was curious, and I was doing some snooping online, and I was like, you know, what is the Dawning weapon set looking like for the year of 2023? And I was kind of impressed, which is why you guys are seeing this video to begin with. Now, granted, we are getting 5, ooh, that hurts my heart, 5 reissues in one new weapon, but from what I saw, especially from the reissued stuff and the new perks that is on the reissued weapons, I liked what I saw, so that's why you guys are seeing today's video. So we're going to go over all 6 of the Dawning 2023 weapons and basically go over every single one of the perk sets and go over why you might want to get it. The Dawning this year is basically the same as every year, so I'm not really going to get into how to do that. What I am going to get into, though, is thanking these individuals, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, tier 2 YouTube members, Patreon supporters, link in the description if you guys want to join their list of names. But yeah, thank you guys so much for checking out the video and enjoy. Let's get into the weapons. All right, we got 6 weapons to cover, so let's stop messing around and start with my beloved GLACIOCLASM. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a bit, you know that I've been on a kick whenever it comes to high impact fusion rifles, especially if they roll with controlled burst. And fellas, Bungie knows how to tickle my pickle because now I have my adept loaded question at Arc Element, my crafted Eremite at Solar Element, and the new and improved GLACIOCLASM at Void Element. Sadly, this season we don't have Unstopped Fusion, which sucks because I really enjoyed using these things in GMs last season, especially whenever the actual burn, or I guess the surge, matched with the element that I was using. But I still find myself using these fusion rifles in DPS scenarios whenever the damage phase can last quite a while, most notably the Crota bosses and even the new dungeon boss towards the end. Anyways, GLACIOCLASM rolls with what I consider to be the best roll, Overflow and Controlled Burst. And I like Controlled Burst so much because of the extra damage that you get, which is 20% for hitting your shots on a target, as well as having an increased charge time after you do so. So it kind of makes the high impact frame not feel as shitty to actually use, which I really like. But you also have Overflow and Reservoir Burst, which is great for the 25% extra damage on the overflowed shots, with the added bonus that enemies that you kill will explode. You can even use Reservoir Burst for ad clear with Slide Shot and Subsistence too, but using Reservoir Burst for ad clear is probably one of the worst ideas you could have since Waveframe GLs exist, so I'd stick to using these for damaging beefy health bar enemies. Avalanche. For those unfamiliar, Avalanche is the 450 RPM solar machine gun from the Dawning, and while I'm not the greatest fan out there for this thing, it does have a few interesting rolls that you might want to get. For starters, we have some typical combos that you might see, like Subsistence Incandescent or Stats for All Incandescent, since the explosions can proc that. Maybe Subsistence 1 for All, but then we have some interesting rolls, like Rewind rounds paired with either Vorpal Weapon or Target Lock. And I could see Rewind Vorpal being something that I might would use in a Solar Surge GM if we were to see something like Overload Machine Gun come back again. But outside of that, it is a fairly niche role. All in all, though, it is a very good machine gun due to having some very solid perks. I mean, we didn't even talk about auto-loading holster and adrenaline junkie and stuff. But, you know, I think the main thing here is that it's part of the 450 machine gun frame, which is some of the best machine guns in the game, like Song of Ŵyr, Commemoration, etc. So that automatically makes it a very nice pick. The only other competition that this machine gun has is another Solar 450, but that one comes from Trials. And I would imagine that most players aren't grinding that godforsaken wasteland just for a machine gun. Albedo Wing. The newest weapon to make its way to the Dawning weapon set, Albedo Wing, comes into the fray as a very solid glaive during a season where glaives got exponentially better from how they once were. The most notable thing I can say about this weapon is that it's the only aggressive frame art glaive that can roll with the perk Close to Melee, which if you didn't know, it increases your melee damage after a projectile final blow, and that perk, in my opinion, is one of the most important perks to have on a glaive, and in this case, a high damaging glaive thanks to the archetype. Now, alongside this, it also rolls attrition orbs in the same column, which might be worth it, especially if the melee hits would generate orbs too, and it even has demo and lead from gold there as well. Now, the first column, surprisingly enough, has beacon rounds, which we saw on the rocket pistol from the new dungeon, which is interesting. I don't think I would ever use it. We also have Grave Robber for reloading on melee kills, which is good. Replenishing Aegis, which isn't half bad. Clown Cartridge, and Field Prep. I won't lie, as a Strand Titan, I'll definitely be farming one of these throughout the event, as I've been enjoying glaives on Strand and Synthos, and I think the role that I'll probably go with is Field Prep because of the super fast reload if you crouch, plus you also get the reserves, as well as close to melee. Cold Front. Cold Front has always been a fairly solid kinetic SMG for a while now, but I've never been a big kinetic primary kind of guy, so it's never usually equipped for me, so much so that I actually deleted mine during a vault cleaning stream a while ago, so I gathered gameplay with the Extraordinary Rendition instead, which is another 750 RPM. Anyways, Cold Front has some pretty good perks in the first column, featuring Unrelenting, Subsistent, Stats for All, Enlightened Action, and Rewind Rounds, while the second column has One for All and Frenzy. So of course, you have your usual Stats for All, One for All, you could have Subsistence, Frenzy, Enlightened Action with either of those. I mean, it's a fairly good perk set that we have here. Not a bad weapon at all, but it's just, like I said, it's one that I'm not going to use despite the great perks that it has. Stay Frosty. Similar to the new glaive that we talked about earlier, this weapon returns during a season which just saw a sizable buff to its weapon type, and in this case, it's pulse rifles. Now, this weapon is a 450 RPM stasis pulse, and it comes with a fairly unique recommendation for me that is the collective action perk in the second column. Now, normally I don't really recommend this perk, but if you're running a stasis build, you're probably generating stasis shards at an insane rate already, and this perk will give you a free 20% extra damage for 7 seconds when you pick one up. And if you have the right mod combination, you can actually have these stasis shards count as charges of light, or essentially as orbs of power for you, and you can combine this 20% extra damage that you get with an actual stasis weapon surge mod. So that would be pretty good if you were going for that. You also have Desperado, Headstone, and Kill Clip, but I don't get to talk about collective action often, so I wanted to mention it. Anyways, in the first column, the only perk that you want is Enlightened Action, which is going to boost your reload for dealing damage, and that's all you want from that column. Just ignore everything else. ZEPHYR. For anyone wanting anything incredibly different from last year, you're not really gonna get it. My recommendation for the sword is basically the same, just shoot for Cold Steel in the second column, since that's what makes this weapon unique, which, by the way, ZEPHYR is a stasis sword, and Cold Steel freezes enemies in 3 light attacks and then shatters them. Or you could go for 1 light attack and 1 heavy attack to do this. If you want to be quirky, you of course could go with Chain Reaction, and in the first column, if you're using Cold Steel, then you could use Relentless Strikes, which makes the most sense to conserve ammo, and if you're doing Chain Reaction, then maybe Unrelenting so that those explosion kills can heal you, or Wellspring so they give you ability energy instead. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up this year's overview of the Dawning loot. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did making it, and as usual, shout out to my comment of the day enjoyers for helping support the content as always. Today's word of the day for the comments of the day for the next video is of course going to be the word Santa, in celebration of the dawning upon us here in mid-December. Anyways guys, thank you all so much for watching and enjoying the content. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time.